Mi dawlo tio. Ninde Luisia Cactusis. My name is Marie Knockwood. Thunderchild is my native name. I live here in Epwood Band in Prince Edward Island. I'm a native. Oh no, everybody else calls us Mi'kmaq, but I call myself Onu. And I was taken to the Indian residential school when I was 10 years old. And not too long ago, I did a protest at the John A. Macdonald statue. John A. Macdonald was the man that brought about the residential schools back in the 1800s, late 1800s. And they have him, the statue of him everywhere. And the statue I was upset about was the one that's on Queen Street in Charlottetown. So what I want to tell you about now is the government did to us. The Indian residential school in Shubenacadie, Nova Scotia was brought about by the Canadian government. And they were the financial component of it. And the Catholic diocese overseeing it. The Indian agents were sent out to the reservations to collect up the children, and they came with the RCMP. They just grabbed the children. Some of the parents never knew what happened to their children until a few days later. Some of them knew. And those are the ones that kind of helped the other parents out. The children only spoke their language. They only spoke and understood. Oh no. They never understand what was happening to them. They were taken to the residential school. Now this residential school would punish them if they spoke their language. They were beaten into learning the English language. You were better off not speaking at all. Well, a lot of them never speak because they were scared to get beaten. There was boys and girls, and that school was divided in half. The girls on one side, boys on the other side. Boys' side, girls' side. The nuns, the Sisters of Charity, I think they were, and Father Collins, they all stayed there too. We slept on the 3rd floor, and the nuns and the priests slept on the 2nd floor, and everything went on in the the first, or kind of like the basement. When we first got there, the place was set up so beautiful. There was like murals of Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and all these Disney characters filled the walls. There was beautiful couch and chairs and tables and coffee table and a rug. And in the one corner was a beautiful kitchenette for children and a little house they could play in, and it made excitement. But the next day, after the parents were gone and all the children were there, because the reservation, some of the parents came from the reservation nearby. When the parents were all gone, then all those murals were gone. The basement was kind of empty. There was no couch or end tables, coffee table, rugs, or and the fancy little house is gone, the kitchenette's gone. Instead, you have a ball and skipping rope. And it was concrete. Everything looked gray and dismal. Now, the only portion of that building that was shared was the dining area. The boys were on one side and the girls on the other side. You couldn't go back and forth and visit one another. You stayed on your side and they stayed on their side. But this area was used also to embarrass any bedwetters. They had to take their sheet and show it. They got a beating. And embarrassed. Made shame of, made fun of. They were told to laugh at the ones that were showing off their soil sheets. And if you didn't like what they were giving you to eat, you had to eat it anyway, get a beating until you ate it. And if you throw it back up, they would make you eat it anyway. All the boys and girls were given chores to do. Cleaning, cooking, doing hours of dishes, laundry, and there was no washer or anything like that. You did it all by hand. And you hung it out in the clothesline. And you had to make sure everything was clean. And even there was times where they make you wash the floor. If they're punishing you, you had to wash a wooden floor with a toothbrush. Every little piece of it. You're kneeling there on your knees and scrubbing, and you don't get nothing to eat. You don't get to sleep or nothing till you finish washing that whole floor. Maybe 8 by 12 foot floor. Yeah. And when you first get there, they give you a number. And that number is sewn on all your clothes, and it's on all your lockers. Anything that you're given, the number's on it. That's all you're known as while you're there, is that number. When the girls started their monthly, their moon time, then they have to serve the priest. And they were put like these chambermaid outfits on them. And that would get the girls ready to serve the priest. Lipstick was put on them, makeup, and she would make sure their breast was shown. And the little dresses, little skirts that were put on them. And they had to take a tray of wine and flour, and you take it in, and she'd tell you how to conduct yourself in his presence. And if he wanted, he had sex with you. And if you get pregnant, your baby was thrown into the furnace or into the bottomless pit after it was born. You were put in another area when you were carrying a child, when you started getting noticed. You were put in another area of that building. Nobody got to see you till after your baby was born. You never got to see the baby. And the boys had to do the furnace, keeping the furnace going out to the barn, milking the cows, or all the things that farming, stuff like that. And I'm not sure exactly what they did on the boys' side, but their side looked awful. Real dismal. They were all unhappy. There was no happiness among them, among all of us. But the funny thing is, just before we were leaving, just before the school was going to be over and we were going to be allowed to go home, they treated you so nice. Got to go to movies. We went on trips in the zoo. Got to see different animals and stuff. And they gave you little bags of candy to take with you. You got to go on a picnic. All the fun things. And I even asked Marie, I said, how come that man is so nice to me? She said, oh, you're going home soon. I never understood then. I understand now what it was all about. So that's just a touch of my story that I want to tell. Just a little parts of my story. It's much deeper and a whole lot longer than that. So, a lot of my people grew up sad, bitter, broken. And most of them that took the brunt of everything couldn't even tell their stories. That's how bad it was for them. It took me a while to tell my story. I studied psychology, human behavior. There was no help out there. There's still no help out there. Whatever you go through, you're going through it alone, unless you learn how to open up and talk about it, tell people about it. That's your healing right there. The more you talk about it, the less painful it is. I used to have nightmares every freaking night after I brought the memory up. I still do, but it's not as horrific and scary as it used to be. I wake up screaming. Sometimes I wake up underneath my table, running away. So I really, really want you to hear the whole story because it's horrific. What happened to me isn't half as bad as what happened to a lot of other ones that were in there. I say that for myself because I seen things that were real bad, but what I went through was real bad and scarred me big time. So I welcome you to continue listening to my story when it comes out again, because that'll be the most. But also prepare yourself, because it is a hard to listen to, and it's hard to hear, and more likely it is hard to believe. But when you hear it, you'll believe it, and that's the scary part. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all the best. May God bless.